Welcome everyone to another episode of ADEEL PIRZADA podcast. Today we got Kevin as usual. How are you doing, Kevin?
Hey everyone, glad to be here and glad to dive in construction design.
Awesome. Yeah, today we got another exciting episode about construction. Last week we were discussing about commercial construction. I believe we talk about different sectors of construction, residential, commercial, and I believe we were still discussing the commercial. And so today we're going to dig down even deeper on commercial construction and then see, what Kevin has got on questions for us.
Yeah. So this podcast is sponsored by the Pircon Group. We are commercial construction experts. We provide design services and build services. So one of the things we do is design. You're going to hear about a little bit about what we do in terms of our design stuff and our permitting and our process. So tune in today. And if you want any information or apply for a quote, just hit the link down below or visit our website, pircongroup.com.
Yeah, and guys, do hit the like button and do subscribe our channel. We need more of your support to keep going and keep doing this. So we would really appreciate if you do give us your comments and your likes.
Yeah. So we're gonna dive in now. So we have a couple of questions here. I know Adeel's he's always busy and doesn't have much time today. So we're gonna pack this up into 20-30 minutes. So let's go and design.
Yeah, so I think you had some questions about commercial design, or is it all design, all different type of design?
Yeah, design, construction design. Not like if you're listening, we're not talking about photography and graphic design. Nothing like that. This is more the design of a building and construction and how it all plays, like architecture, engineering, and Adeel's an expert. I'm going to be asking him. He's going to be teaching me like a mentorship call meeting. I'm going to be asking. He's the teacher. I'm the student. So I hope you enjoy this this session on just like learning session.
Yeah, like this podcast, honestly, and these episodes that we're doing about construction and, all the different types of commercial construction that we discuss and the other construction that we've been discussing is just actually, it's like I'm teaching you, I'm telling you, having the experience and understanding about construction. So I'm teaching and we're just recording it. So that's how I look at it, right? It's like you got questions about construction, you got a question about what we do. You already know what we're all about, but in terms of the depth of some of these things, how they play out and how they work together. So this is just a great opportunity for me to actually record this. So maybe we can use this not only for you, but other people coming in Pircon too. And that's how we're going to take advantage by providing that help to our customers and to those business owners that are just in that phase of their entrepreneurship, of their building and designing, whether it's their business or whether it's they're doing for someone else. It's just that they can learn from this, and then we can just help them out with the process of what this construction is all about. Yeah. So go ahead, Kevin. What we got?
Yeah. All right. So I like this podcast, this episode. If you're working with us or considering working with us, and a common fact, frequently asked question, I've included it here, such as how long does it take, what is the DP, how long does that take, a building permit. That's all going to be here. So don't skip this podcast to the end. Don't swipe past. Listen. So the first question that I have is, what types of construction design exists?
So I think it's a very vague kind of question. Like there is different types of engineering. So there's construction is construction, and then within construction, the design itself, it is it kind of divided into different engineering. So you could all different types of engineering that you can think of. Eventually, that would be needed on a project, right? Some projects only need one or two different types of engineering design, and some projects need way more than that. So let's take an example. When you're doing a house, you don't need much for it. I mean, different places, different areas, different cities are different, but I'm just going to go with generic. You would need a civil engineer. So if it's a ground up build up, right? So you will need a civil engineer to be involved to plan out your services. So your site services, which would be grading of your lot and which would be your underground services. So your mechanical is one of them, electrical is one of them, and then architectural is one of them. So those are 3 or 4 different engineers that you would require, and those are your designers. Architect being the main guy, because they're the one who will draft out the first layout and everybody just adds on top of it. That's how it typically works. Not that the other faculties or the engineers cannot do, but this is how it goes. So if you were to build a house, and this is what we discussed in our few last episodes that about construction, right? So there's residential construction and land subdivision. So just take an example of that. If we're building a house, an infill house, what would it require for the design? Let's take that as an example. So if you're doing an infill, and let's say you had a lot, and first thing you would need on a construction is actually to do your site servicing. And that's how you kind of go in your plan. So when you hire someone, you're going to need someone to do your civil, so your site servicing plan. But before that, you will have an architect probably who can help you out with the design and the building.
Now, the scene sounds like the builder would do this, like kind of bring them together.
Sure. I mean, as a builder or as a homeowner, it doesn't matter. If it's a land subdivision, it's a brand new community, it would be the developer doing that. With the association with the builder, or the builder alone would be doing that. If you were doing an infill house, so inner city, brand new homes, or a home on an older lot, then you could have a builder who's going to do that if that's who you hired. Or you're going to need, or let's say if you were to take on the project yourself and you're going to do it, or you're going to have different parties do the project, but you're going to be the main contact making that happen. So you're going to directly contact a architect, and you're
like the homeowner would.
Yeah, the homeowner would. Right? And so let's say if I want to build a custom house, what's the first thing I need to do? I need to look for an architect. Call the architect, say, I got a piece of land, or I'm interested in a piece of land. I would like to build my dream home on it. Right? So that's the first step. Okay. Then with the help of...
Get an architect.
Yeah, get an architect. So now with the help of architects...
This is for building a custom home, by the way.
Yeah, and I'm just using that as an example so everybody could understand that, right? Okay. I'm sure everyone wants to build a dream home one day. So just taking that example, right? If you found, a piece of land somewhere else in the world, right on the beach, this is what you need to do. Call an architect. Once you find the land, call the architect. Say, I got a piece of land. It's so and so big, it's this many feet by this many feet, and what can I build there? This is where you would start, because the architect will have the knowledge about the city bylaws and the city planning, and what are the different zonings that are available that you can build within. Then they can kind of help you with that. And then from there, so after having the architect, then the architect can help you, or you your own can find the other engineering's help that you're going to require. So that would be civil. If your project's big enough, and again, different municipalities, different areas have different jurisdictions. Different jurisdictions have different bylaws that you have to follow. But let's say for a normal house, you don't really need an electrical mechanical engineer. But if it surpasses certain square footage, if you're building certain units, certain sizes,
like a mansion.
Yeah. If you surpass a certain size, then you're gonna have to do that. If it's passes certain height, if it surpasses certain height, if it's location. There's many other reasons. If it has some issues with more of a safety, it's like a fire safety issue, then you'll have to get electrical and mechanical engineers involved too. And that's what you would need at the very least. Now, then you could also need a structural engineer. So when you're for your foundation and some structure of the house, so that's another faculty you're going to need. But yeah, you basically, basically within those, that's all you're going to need, and those are your designers.
Now, tell me when a mechanical or electrical engineer would be needed.
Yeah, so that's when once you do your architectural drawings. I mean, this is how I would really plan it out, that it goes in a smooth sequence. So This is what I would do. I would go to an architect, and now you have two options. Either that architect has the entire team. So they have the electrical, mechanical, civil, structural, whoever you need, they'll have that team within. Or they will be outsourcing that. And they can also leave that up to you to find that person. So you can outsource it, and then you can bring him on to the team. So this is what you would do. You go to an architect, see firstly what the architect is offering. Most of the time, the most of the architectural firms, they do not have the in-house team. They outsource it. And they may have industry friends or people that have been working for a long time that they may have a relationship with them. So they may even recommend you one and say, hey, we got this and this company that can help you out. We know they're reasonable. The price is good. Their timelines work with us. We understand them. They understand us. This is what we want. So you can take their recommendation and then hire that electrical or mechanical person. Or you could just
referral.
Or you could just go your own and you say, okay, I got the architect now and I got the basic stuff. Now I'm going to find an electrical company to do my electrical engineering, and then I'm going to find a mechanical to do my mechanical engineering. So that's how it would go. But I think once you do the first step and you get to understand, because that's very important, because you may not even need an electrical engineer and you may not even require the mechanical, based on what you're really designing and building. If you're doing your basement design, you don't need any of those. You don't even need an architectural engineer. You are an architect. You just need a drafter to draw up your designs. So you don't need. It really depends what you're building and where you're building it. Those are the two most important things that will decide what kind of engineering you're going to need, what kind of drawings you're going to require, and based on that, what kind of help you will require.
Okay. Now, like this, for someone listening, but I know there's different stuff like 3D rendering and drawings and blueprints. Could you tell us the difference between the three I just mentioned? Like, what's a render versus a drawing, a floor plan versus, a blueprint?
So a typical drawing is your 2D drawing, okay? That's just on a piece of paper. And then that can be shown as a 2D in two different ways. So you can have a floor plan view. So you can see it like it's also called
as built.
Yeah, no. As built is type of drawing, but the view is also called. So it's a floor plan view. So you're looking from above. You're looking from the top.
Okay.
Or like a bird's eye view, right? There's that, and then there is the elevation view, which is everything is right in front of you.
Yeah,
as
so
a
front
vertical.
facing.
Yeah, so as a vertical, and then you can see. So those are the most common views that you'll get. I mean, you could also have little 3D views in there for certain things, but those are the most common views that we'll have.
So top view and elevation. Yeah,
so top view, that you see everything as a floor plan, and then you got the elevation view. The 3D is, as it sounds, is the 3D drawing, right? And now you're able to see it more of a physical shape of it as colors. Now, that is not where you require. It's not required at all. Okay, like for what you build, you're not required to produce those 3D drawings. It's just for the fun.
Unless you're like a realtor, you want to sell the house, or you're selling a future house.
Unless, we do it all the time for our clients, because They want to see what it's going to look like when it's done, and then and they're not realtors. They have nothing to do with those drawings. They just need it for themselves to visualize it, to see how their place is going to end up looking.
Yeah.
So there's that reason to do those 3D drawings. Sometimes these bigger projects, so let's say you're building a tower, you're going to need those 3D drawings to show it to the city, to show it to the to get your approvals, because there's so much detail. So all the bigger projects, they would require it. And then, like if you're a realtor, if you're building a place to sell, if you're building a place to lease, for sure, you want to get those 3D visual basics that you can show it and share it with people, and then you can make them visualize what you're building. Yeah.
I've seen some really nice rendering.
Yeah.
Really nice. It looks almost real, or like a cartoon game.
Yeah, you know what the funny thing is, that we have a rendering, and then you build it and they look exactly the same or almost identical, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. And we have that on a lot of our projects. We do rendering, and then we build it, and they pretty much look the same. It's like you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, like hey, if by the way, if everyone watching and everyone who's been following Pircon, one of our projects is almost done, the nail salon. So I'm going to post a post where it compares the rendering versus the actual completed construction. And man, I'm just going to say now, it looks so very similar. Like
I think the actual looks
identical.
The actual looks better. So the actual will look better by the time we're done, for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. So stay tuned. We could help you with your nail salon as well.
Yeah, so anything commercial. We'll build it.
Yeah. Now, blueprints.
So, blueprints is the old term. It's the same thing. It's basically, back in the days, they had those prints in blue color, and then they'll call it blueprints. So,
so the drawings would be blue.
The drawings are blueprints. That's what they're like, a term.
Okay.
I don't know where it came from, but I've seen a lot of old prints in blue color, so I think that's where it came from. Blueprints. It's basically your drawings. Those are your 2D drawings.
Yeah. So that basically in blue, the color blue.
Yeah.
Cool. So now, question moving on to the next couple of questions. We kind of covered the architectural role already. So, but there are so many different types of architectural. I'm kind of interested in that. Let's talk about like a huge building, like a huge multifamily tower, or like a civil building. What role does the architect play in that project?
So architect is all about the visuals, how it's going to look, the end product. So architect is focused on what's available within the land, within, what's you're given, what can be built. And that's usually decided on based on the municipality or the jurisdiction's bylaws. So building code and the bylaws. So they take those as a Bible. They'll see it. Okay, this is what I'm allowed in this area. I can go up to this many feet in height. I can go up to this big in the backyard. I can go up to this big in the window sizes. So all has been pretty much predefined.
Oh, so the city defined it.
Yeah. So it's defined. So there's two things. There is more, but I'm just talking about basic. When you're discussing the basic, there's two things they're looking at. They're looking at the building code. So building code is all about what is a common practice, a standard, safe practice to build a building. Okay, and then we have different building codes. So we have ABC, which is Alberta Building Code, and there's Ontario, there's BC, there's National Building Code, NBC. Okay. So there's different building codes, and there's for electrical, mechanical, civil, structural, you name it. There's all the Bible written down already for all these. Okay. That's done nationwide based and province based or state based. And again, in US, the same things done as a nation based. So, and then there's based on states, and even you can narrow down. And then you'll have bylaws. So bylaws will, now that municipality can come in, and what they see the growth for that area, for their city, that's what they come up with. And they say, okay, we allow certain types of development and we don't allow certain types of development. By staying within the building code, national building code, they will develop their bylaws. their guidelines about how they're going to run the city and how they're going to grow the city. It's basically that. So architect comes in, he takes those two pieces of information, hold it very tight to his heart, and then we'll come up with a design, and he'll let the owner know, okay, this is what we can build within what we have, what based on the size of your land and zoning of your land and the based on municipality and then bylaws. This is what's possible to build. And then the owner would look at it and they'll say, okay, yeah, this works for me or not, or I can build it or not. That's how it would go. So this is, I would highly recommend it, whether it's a small project and big projects. Obviously, that's how they're done because you don't want to spend a lot of money. Is that whenever you got a project and let's say it's a very simple small project, you want to approach the designer, the architect. The first guy is the architect, who is going to be able to draw up the plans. So that's the first person you want to reach out. And then you'll know, okay, well, this is something going out of my budget. This is something that's going to be too big, or this is something I want or don't want. Then you can decide at that level. And only when you think it's feasible for you and you should proceed, that's when you want to hire the next guy, which is the civil and the structural and the electrical and mechanical.
Perfect. So as we go on I'm reflecting on our timeline schedule here. I do want to highlight a couple main questions that can be beneficial for you if you're a listener, especially around one of our key packages that we provide with Pircon Consulting Group, which is a company inside the Pircon Group, and building permits and development permits, which is those packages, especially the building permit package, which includes drawings and consultation with the city. Those are very important, and these next couple minutes are for you if you're listening. And Adeel, I'm going to ask you some questions on the building permit process. What is a building permit, and why is it important for you there?
So a building permit process, basically, you're going to have once you know what you want to build, you get that design team together that put a design for you together, and then you want to submit to the city. Now, there's actually a couple benefits for the city and for you to do that. For the city is obviously they need to know what you're going to build, and they need to approve it that if it matches within their bylaws and something is allowed or not allowed, and if it's not allowed, how they can kind of get it by applying for different permits. And then obviously city collects a fee. And then they will monitor these construction and they'll look after them, right? So there's that city does, and then that's why it's important for them to know that what is being built is according to what been decided as a town, as a city. And why it's important for you as the owner is very important, because once all of this you submit to the city actually becomes liable. They become partner with you in your project. So they're not only going to ensure that it's done the way city wants, they're also going to ensure that whatever is being built, it's safe, right? So when you submit a building permit, there's kind of two portions to it where city gets involved. One, the first portion where city is going to get involved on the designing. So once you submit the design plans, city will check that. And if there's any issues, and if there is anything that is lacking or not meeting the building code or the bylaw, they'll check for that. I mean, you can't really hold them responsible for that. That's why you have the architectural and engineering firms and those teams taking care of that work. But they will overview everything, and if there is any issues, they'll bring up. So they're just an extra set of eyes doing that stuff for you. The second part of the process is actually the inspection. So the city, once your permit has been sent and approved, the second partnership that you'll have with the city, that they'll come during the construction in your project and they will do inspections. So there's different inspections they'll perform in order to see where your project is at in terms of in terms of the construction, whether it's been done properly, and then they'll also finalize it. So they'll come in and at a rough-in stage, and they will come in at the final stage. Those are the most two common partnerships you kind of get in terms of the permitting services with the building, and those are the the two common inspections that you get with the city: rough-in inspection and final inspections.
So if you're not familiar about rough-in inspections, rough-ins are when the services come in. So plumbing and mechanical, that's right before.
Yeah, that's like your rough work when it's done. They would need to check that so before you cover everything up. So if there's any issues, if there is any if there's something that is not meeting the bylaw, it's not meeting the code, that can be pointed out right there, right then, and it can be fixed, rather than just going further into construction and finding out that it's not going to work and it's not done according to the bylaw.
So they check it before that you cover everything and hide it behind a wall and under concrete.
Yeah. Like if you get your rough-ins done and then you decide to put your walls and then you call the city inspector, you're most likely going to have to tear apart your walls and show them what you have done.
Just so he can see, yeah. That's it. All right, so just quickly, briefly, could you share a little bit what's included in our package? Just
so,
if you work with Pircon.
I mean, okay, so typically it really depends, right? We do residential design and we do commercial designs. And then within residential, there are so many different types of design, and within commercial, there are so many. So it really depends, but I'll take a good example of what we do on the commercial side. Let's say these are the strip malls, the QSRs, which is the quick sale restaurants, the convenience stores, and then all the retails. So I'm talking about the basic retail. We provide the package based on what's required in the city. So if we're in the city of Calgary, you would only need the architectural plans, so which is just the floor plans, and then you would need electrical and mechanical. So we just only provide that. We don't go above and beyond giving you more stuff that you need, and then you're going to spend a lot of money when it's not even required. We'll provide that, and that we give it as a package. If you need a 3D rendering, if you need anything on top of that, or let's say your project exceeds certain square footage or certain building code, and like it's more complex, then you're going to need more set of hands and designer on it. So obviously then we add that to the package.
So the drawings.
So basic package will be your floor plan designs, your elevation designs, and your electrical and mechanical.
Basically 4 different drawings you'll get, and you'll have our team communicating with the city.
Yeah, so at the very minimum that we would offer that you need. So if you go below that, it won't work out for you because you won't get your approval from the city. And we also actually take care of all the approval system with the city. So we'll go and on behalf of the owner, we'll submit those permits and correspond with the city. And if there's any issues, we take care by working with the city. And you never have to worry about it as a client or owner. We take care of all that stuff.
How long does it take to get approved for something like that? Building permit.
So again, there are different timelines for different types of construction and different types of project, but take an example of our most common stuff that we do, which is a retail construction, tenant lease improvements. You normally would need, it takes about 21 days. So that's City of Calgary. City of Edmonton has a different timeline. They're all about pretty much the same, like Airdrie, different places. Like we have done building permit processes even in different provinces and even the US, right? So they have different timelines. Like working in Arizona, I think at about 2 months time. I could be wrong. Yeah, I mean the time, and these timeline changes depending on the city's load and how much work they're doing. But very typically they're about 1 month time for building permit.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And with that, so about a month, 21 to a month timeline. So if you're listening, you asked me this question, I will send you this video. Okay.
I'm sure you get that question asked a lot.
Yeah. Now, as we move on, development permits. What is that, and why is it important?
So development permit. Do you mean the timelines?
No. Just from a high level.
Okay, so
what is it?
Okay, so these permits, by the way, it's not optional. So it's not like, hey, should I get a permit or not? I'm thinking I shouldn't get it. These are not optional permits. You get it once, you're doing certain things. You're going to require a permit. And if that permit requires a DP permit first, then you're going to have to do that. And then it requires a BP. So BP is a must. So whenever you're building something, changing, renovating, you're going to need a building permit.
What if you're changing like a cupboard?
No, like then you don't need.
On your wall.
So it's very basic, I'll tell you. And again, don't quote me on this because every jurisdiction, every province, every state, every city is different. They do things a little bit differently, and they will have different bylaws and different kind of timeline expectations. Okay. City of Calgary, just talking about that. Like City of Toronto is different. Like they're all different all over the place. City of Calgary, if you are renovating, let's say your house or anything, as long as you do not touch the wall, as long as you do not break a wall and don't move it, don't tear it down, you do not have to get permit. If it's painting, changing the floors, changing the lights, you do not need a proper building permit. But if you're getting electrical work done and mechanical work done, and then you're going to have plumbing in there, you're going to need trades permit. So your trade would have to apply for those permits, and those are different from like building permit and development permit. They're not so much of drawings and like work on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
They are just the inspections that once they're done, they're rough-in and final. They call in the city, they pay a fee. The city inspector comes and checks their work and give them a tick mark.
For a trades permit. Soon as you break a wall, soon as you start going into bigger stuff, so you're doing a full reno and you're going to be there's some demolition involved, and you're running new electrical, then there is obviously mechanical, and then there is plumbing, then it's just better to get your building permit because you're going to apply for building permit anyway. So may as well just have everything under one building permit, get that created, come to Pircon, we'll work on it, we'll put it together based on what you need. What is required, not even need. So there's a minimum that you would have to do no matter what. City doesn't care about 3D drawings when for smaller projects, so you don't have to do those. Don't get a 3D render.
Yeah. Don't pay for that. Just get the very basic they require, and they always require the basic anyway, and give them that. And that will take care of all your permits in a way that all the trades now come in. They'll still have to apply for their trade permit, but they use your permit, the main permit, as a permit to call all their inspections. And it's under one umbrella.
Oh, for the BP.
Yeah. So DP is, again, it's not optional, it's mandatory, more mandatory than building permit. So you would require, if it's required, you have to do it. It's a development permit. It's required if you're changing the use or certain things about a building, then you need it.
Need a DP.
Yeah, let's say like you own a house, right? And then it's a single family home. You want to tear it down, build a 2-house. Well, guess what? You're going to need a development permit now. It's not only building.
It's not a single dwelling.
You're changing the use of the building now. So, and let me give you another example. An office building, okay? That's always been used in an office. And then you come in and you're like, hey, I want to build a big salon here or a clothing store. Most likely you're going to need a DP for that as well.
Oh.
Because you're changing the use. Now,
even though it's both businesses.
Yeah, like
both commercial.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I gave you a rare example because it's just like certain places would allow that. Mostly, once you have commercial, once you have a retail, you can do basically all type of retail.
Yeah.
Minus some, like you can't, maybe a liquor store or cannabis store won't be allowed, or certain other things. Let me give you another example. Let's say you got an office building and now you want to change it to a brewery place. Okay, so it's a completely different use. So now you're going to have to get a DP, or an office and you want to change it to a restaurant. You're going to need a DP first.
So if it's an office to an office, BP only.
Yes. If you're not changing the use and you're not changing too much, again, it's really complicated in terms of like, hey, you said no office and I'm building an office and I have to get a DP. If you got an office space and you decided to change the look of the building, change facade of the building, you decided to change certain things about the architecture, you're going to have to apply for DP as well. If you are not doing many things, if you're keeping the stuff same inside, you're not going to have to.
But if you're changing the exterior, it's the same use. Why do
it's
you
the
need
same
DP?
use, but now when it comes to building permit, they're only concerned about
Interior.
the interior. Well, I shouldn't say it like that, but you can think it like that, especially for all the small retail construction stuff that we do. You can think of it like that.
Okay.
When the interior is the building permit, the exterior is the development permit. Sometimes we install this big signage. We have to get a development permit for those two, because they're not allowed. They're above certain size, and then we have to apply for.
So would it be fair to say like a DP would be based on size, job size?
No,
Would it be fair to say?
DP has everything to do with use and the development of, if you're making, if your construction is gonna make a change to the development of the building, that is when you require a DP.
Like the whole building.
Yes.
Not just the unit.
Yeah, like overall. Now, the thing is, why you need to apply for it, because that's the process. So those set of eyes of the city need to look at it. Get it? Let's say this would be a good example. Let's say I have an office building that's 2 stories. Okay. Now I want to add a 3rd story. Do I go for just BP, or do I need DP and BP? You need both. You're going to need a development.
Because you're adding an upstairs.
Exactly. But yes, exactly. And it's not just construction. Even though it's just construction, you're doing just the addition. No, but the city has to look at it again and see it, if you're even allowed to put an extra story. And if you are, what height can you go through, and what is going to be overall look of that building? How is it going to affect the neighborhood? What kind of, there's so many things that need to look at as a community base. Okay. And that is making a change to the building, to the dwelling system. So they need to look at if you're going to make any neighbors unhappy, if they're going to get less of a sunshine, if you're going to destroy any trees in the process. So they need to look at the whole process again, like you're building it from the ground zero. So they need to look at it, and that's why you'll submit a DP permit. And now, because of that construction that's required now, that extra story you're building, well, what is it made out of? Is it wood, or is it if you're working with steel, is it concrete? What kind of electrical system, what kind of mechanical that you require, what kind of rooftop unit? So all that stuff is part of the building permit then.
So change of use, DP, breaking walls, BP, and if it's not changing use, BP.
That's right.
All right. So let's quickly go into the timeline of a DP, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay, so DP it really depends. For a retail store, for smaller construction stuff that we would do, it would change of use within weeks sometimes.
3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5, 8.
2 weeks sometimes. Really depends. Smaller the uses, smaller the changes, quicker they can get it done. And I would say 3 weeks.
But if it's a rapid use, like change from a restaurant to a residential,
that's a big use, right? You're changing. Like there's so many things to look at. Like, is it a commercial area? Now you're trying to develop that into residential. Could be issues if there's any life safety things that to look at, and what kind of building is it in. The building code revisions are required. Not the revisions, the building code studies are required. So there are things that needs to be done. So it could take a very long time for you as an owner or an architect to get that done, and then for the city to review that in their process time. So I would say the timelines are anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months to maybe 6 months on the newer stuff.
Big use change, long time. Small use change, less time.
That's correct.
All right, so we dived in. I hope you took some value from these last 20 minutes of this podcast about building permits. We're going to be putting these all into reels, by the way. I know some of you have distracted ADD and you're like, oh, get swiped every day. You can't even listen to a full podcast. We're going to break these down into smaller consumable clips that you could watch just like walking around with subtitles, easy to read, easily shareable. Please share our stuff. So we're going to break these down into consumable content for you. But I just want to thank everyone here on behalf of the Pircon group. Thank you. And thank you to ADEEL for sharing your construction design. I've learned a ton, and I hope you have as well. Just as we wrap up, if you have any information and if you're looking for information about what we do, like we have already just said, or you would like to get an estimate or a quote, reach out to us, pircongroup.com, and you could apply there. You could reach out to there, and I'll put my email and my cell in the show notes as well for you to reach out to me.
Yeah, if you have any questions or if there is anything you would like us to talk about in commercial construction, and the reason why it's not that we don't do residential construction, we do tons of residential construction. Commercial construction, we're promoting it, and we want to be the name behind it because there isn't much noise about commercial construction. There's a lot of, channels about residential construction and how to do your own reno and, do painting in your house. But nobody really talks about commercial construction and goes into the depth how. And I think nowadays it's going to become more and more a need because more of these entrepreneurs and these new businesses are going to need to build commercial places. So they're not big corporate, like they may have all the pieces and all the project managers to get their work done. So they may have to educate themselves on some of these things to find the right people to get the work done right way. So that's what we're here for, to build that awareness. So if there is any questions that you have about commercial construction, please put in your comments below, and do let us know. Yes, and there is a topic that you want us to cover. There is a type of construction you want us to cover. You want us to talk about. Please do put in the comments.
Put it down below, comments. And yes, tune in next week.
Thanks,
Let's
guys.
go.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
and,
everyone. Thanks, Kevin.
Yes.
Have a good one.
Have a
Bye.
good one, everyone. Bye. This is the ADEEL Pirzada podcast. Bye.
Bye-bye.